I want you to picture a cloudy August night in Afghanistan.
Right.
And when I say cloudy, I don't mean like a light mist or a drizzle.
You mean real weather.
I am talking zero visibility, like dense pea soup winter fog, thousands of feet in the air, just creating this blanket of absolute blindness.
Which is terrifying in a war zone.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
And down on the ground, below all this terrible weather, an American military battalion is trying to navigate their way out of a steep, narrow valley.
Right. This is after a major operation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're trapped. Hostile forces have them completely pinned down.
Wow.
They're running low on ammunition, they have limited provisions, and they're basically just sitting ducks in the pitch black.
I mean, that is a literal nightmare scenario, life or death.
Total nightmare. And then out of nowhere, from the sky, comes an A-10 fighter pilot. His call sign is Johnny Bravo. Now, standard protocol explicitly states that you do not fly into that kind of weather.
Right, because it's suicide.
Exactly. It's absolute suicide. You can't see the mountains, you can't see the ground, you sure as hell can't see the enemy.
But he goes in anyway.
He dives right in, relying entirely on his instruments, his gut instinct, and, the panicked voices of the radio operators on the ground.
Which is just incredible.
It is. And he not only navigates this treacherous valley, but he starts guiding other fighter jets through the blind weather, too.
Like an airborne traffic cop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the middle of a firefight, telling these other jets exactly when and where to drop their ordnance.
Wow.
And he just threads the needle perfectly over and over again until the enemy is neutralized and the entire battalion is saved.
That's amazing.
Right. But here's the kicker. Years later, an interviewer is asking him about this. And they ask if he expected, like, a medal or some massive parade for pulling off something straight out of a Hollywood movie.
And what did he say?
His response was simply, "That's my job."
Wow. Yeah, it's one of those stories that really forces you to pause and evaluate human nature.
It really does.
Because, objectively speaking, that is not a rational response.
Not at all.
Risking your own life in zero visibility weather, completely violating safety protocols, just to save people you might not even know personally.
And then just shrugging it off.
Right, shrugging it off as just another Tuesday at the office. There is a profound psychological architecture at work there.
And that anomaly, that exact mindset, is what we are dissecting today in this deep dive.
Exactly.
Because how do we build that kind of selflessness? You look at Johnny Bravo, risking everything for his team in a literal war zone.
Yeah.
And then you look at the modern corporate world, and, most of us have experienced this stark contrast.
Oh,
You've got colleagues sitting in safe, air-conditioned offices who will literally throw you under the bus or take credit for your PowerPoint presentation.
Or spread a nasty rumor.
Right, just to secure, like, a 3% raise. It feels like we're talking about two completely different species of humans.
Well, we are unpacking some incredibly dense material today regarding that exact disconnect. We're looking at leadership, human biology, and organizational culture.
Yeah, we got some great sources for this.
We do. We've been looking heavily at frameworks popularized by Simon Sinek, specifically his research into why some teams pull together and others just, completely fracture.
But we aren't treating this like a standard, boring corporate management seminar.
No, not at all. The mission here is to look at the evolutionary biology, the historical precedents, and the actual hardwired neurochemistry of the human brain.
To really understand the mechanics of trust.
Precisely. We want to figure out what biologically composes loyalty and, conversely, what triggers betrayal.
And I want to frame this for you listening right now. Whether you are leading a massive multinational corporation or managing a tiny local retail team, or even if you're just an individual contributor trying to survive a somewhat toxic workplace.
Which is so many people.
Right. Understanding the biological roots of why people behave the way they do is going to completely change how you view your job and your colleagues.
It's a total paradigm shift.
So let's start with a foundational concept we found in the source material called the circle of safety.
The buffalo analogy.
Yes, the imagery used to explain this is just brilliant. It's a herd of wild buffaloes out on the savannah.
The buffalo provides a perfect evolutionary model for this. When a herd is threatened by a predator, say a lion, their instinct isn't to scatter.
Which you would think it would be, right? Run away.
Right. But if they run, the lion has the advantage. The lion is faster, more agile, and can easily isolate the weakest or youngest buffalo if they're all spread out.
Makes sense.
So instead of running, the buffaloes form a tight circle. They stand shoulder to shoulder, facing outward, with their horns pointing in every direction.
So the lion is just staring at this impenetrable wall of horns.
Exactly. As long as they hold that formation, the lion is essentially powerless against the collective strength of the herd. The danger hasn't disappeared, obviously. The lion is still there, but the herd is safe.
Right.
However, the moment that circle fractures,
Like if they start panicking.
yeah, maybe two buffaloes start jostling, or panic sets in, or one just decides to make a selfish run for it to save itself.
The lion exploits that gap.
Instantly, the formation shatters and they get picked off one by one. This circle of safety isn't just a neat little animal trick, it's an absolute evolutionary imperative.
And that tracks perfectly with early human history, too. For our ancestors, danger wasn't, missing a quarterly sales target.
Yeah, it was literal death.
Danger was everywhere. It was predators, rival tribes, starvation, freezing temperatures. If you didn't have a tribe looking out for you, you didn't survive, period.
We evolved to require the group. Our brains are hardwired with this ancient software that is constantly scanning our environment for threats.
Right.
And here's where it applies to the listener today. The modern workplace often mimics that primitive jungle.
Oh man, does it ever.
When leaders fail to establish a circle of safety inside the office, when the environment is defined by backstabbing, internal competition, or just the constant looming threat of layoffs.
Employees subconsciously feel like they're being hunted.
Exactly. They feel like that lone buffalo separated from the herd.
Which brings to mind this amazing historical example from the material about the Spartan warriors of ancient Greece.
Ah, yes, the phalanx.
Right. So we all know the Spartans were the most feared military force of their time. But they had a specific rule in their military code that really caught my eye.
What was that?
In the chaos of battle, losing your helmet, your breastplate, or even your sword was considered, an acceptable casualty of war.
Sure, things happen.
But dropping your shield was an unforgivable crime. In fact, it was punishable by death or exile when you returned home.
That's intense.
It is. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that logic because, okay, let's unpack this. A sword is your offensive weapon. It's how you strike the enemy, secure personal glory, and theoretically win the battle. A shield is just a massive, heavy piece of bronze and wood used for defense.
Yeah.
So why on earth would dropping the shield be the ultimate betrayal?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at the physical mechanics of how the Spartans actually fought.
Okay.
They didn't charge into battle as a bunch of rogue individuals seeking one-on-one duels. They utilized the phalanx formation.
Right, the shield wall.
Exactly. You would stand shoulder to shoulder, incredibly tightly packed with your fellow warriors. You held your shield, which was called a hoplon, in your left hand, and your weapon in your right.
So you're creating a literal wall of bronze.
A wall where the geometry of the shield is the crucial part. The hoplon was enormous. It didn't just cover your own body.
Oh, really?
No, it was designed so that it extended past your left side and overlapped to cover the right side of the man standing next to you.
Oh, wow. Okay, that completely changes the dynamic.
Right. Your shield isn't just for you.
It's for the guy next to you.
Primarily for the person next to you, yes. Your shield protects your brother in arms, and his shield protects you.
That is brilliant.
So if you lose your sword, you lose your personal ability to attack, which, sure, weakens the offense, but the defensive wall remains intact, the group survives.
But if you drop the shield?
Well, those shields weighed around 30 pounds. In the heat of battle, when absolute exhaustion sets in, the temptation to drop that heavy weight to save your own energy is immense.
I can imagine.
But if you drop your shield, you create a physical hole in the phalanx. You expose the man to your left to an enemy spear.
Jeez.
By prioritizing your own comfort and individual survival, you create a fatal vulnerability for the entire collective.
Man, that is a staggering metaphor for the workplace.
It really is.
Think about your last team meeting. If a project fails and you immediately point out that your specific part was done perfectly, so it must be someone else's fault.
You're dropping your shield.
Exactly. That is dropping your shield. You are prioritizing your ego, the I, me, my, over the we, us, together.
You're stepping back and letting the spears hit your colleague just so you can look good to the boss.
Exactly. And we still see organizations intentionally engineering this phalanx mentality today.
Right. The United States Marine Corps is a prime example of this.
The source material details this beautifully. They have a highly deliberate, systematic process for dismantling individual ego.
During boot camp, right?
Yes, during their 13 weeks of boot camp, Marine recruits are literally forbidden from using the words I and me.
Wow.
They cannot refer to themselves in the first person. If they need something, they have to say, this recruit requests permission.
It's a total linguistic breakdown of the self.
It is. They are taught relentlessly that their individual existence is secondary to the team.
Right.
And when they finally complete the crucible, which is this grueling final test, and they're handed their eagle, globe, and anchor pin, you see these hardened, physically exhausted recruits just weeping.
Because of what the pin represents.
Exactly. It represents their acceptance into the ultimate circle of safety. They have surrendered their ego, and in return, they know the people standing to their left and right would literally die for them.
It's a profound psychological transformation, but we have to understand that this isn't just a cultural construct.
But it goes deeper than that.
Much deeper. It's rooted in our biology. You can't fully grasp why the Marine Corps is so effective, or on the flip side, why a toxic boss makes you feel physically ill without understanding the neurochemical cocktail running through our veins.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, human behavior is largely dictated by 4 primary chemicals.
I really want to dive into these chemicals because the way the research frames them makes our everyday actions suddenly make so much sense.
It really connects the dots.
For sure. Think about going to the grocery store. I do this all the time.
Oh, we all do.
If I go to the supermarket at, say, 6 p.m., when I haven't eaten all day and I am absolutely starving,
Dangerous territory.
I completely lose my mind. I go in for milk and eggs, and I come out with frozen pizzas, chips, 3 types of cheese, and cookies I don't even like.
Right.
Why does my brain hijack my rational budgeting like that?
Because from an evolutionary standpoint, early humans didn't have 24/7 access to food.
There was no supermarket.
Exactly. They lived in extreme scarcity. When you found calories, your brain screamed at you to hoard them.
Which explains the 3 types of cheese.
Yes. We are operating 50,000-year-old biological hardware in a modern, automated world. The biological drivers behind that grocery store trip are what the research categorizes as the selfish or survival chemicals.
Yeah, we should clarify. Selfish here doesn't mean malicious. Right?
No, not at all. It means these chemicals are designed purely to keep you, the individual organism, alive.
Got it. Okay, so what's the first one?
The first of these is endorphins.
Okay, we usually hear about endorphins in the context of, the runner's high.
Right. That's the most common modern manifestation. But evolutionarily, endorphins serve a very specific utilitarian purpose.
Which is?
They mask physical pain.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, early humans were not naturally gifted predators. We didn't have sharp claws or incredible sprinting speed like a cheetah.
We were pretty squishy.
Very squishy. So we hunted through persistence. We would track an animal like an antelope for miles and miles, just relentlessly jogging after it in the heat until the animal literally collapsed from exhaustion.
Well, wow. Just out enduring them.
Exactly. But the human body is not designed to run for 4 hours without experiencing severe mechanical stress.
Right.
Muscles tear, joints ache, a lactic acid builds up.
If we felt all of that pain in real time, we would just sit down and starve.
Precisely why endorphins exist. They are an endogenous opioid, a biological painkiller released by the brain to mask the physical agony of the hunt.
Oh, wow.
It provides this euphoric feeling that rewards physical endurance, allowing us to push far beyond our normal limits just to secure a meal.
So today, we trigger it with a brutal workout, but its original design was purely for survival through physical exertion. Okay, so endorphins get us through the pain. The second selfish chemical is dopamine.
Yes, dopamine.
And if there is one neurochemical that defines the 21st century, it is dopamine. It's the chemical of instant gratification and goal achievement.
Right. Dopamine is the feeling of finding something you were looking for.
Like what?
Well, imagine our ancestors walking through a dense forest. They spot an apple tree, like a mile away.
Okay.
Dopamine is the chemical that says, focus on that tree, keep walking toward it. As they get closer, they get little hits of it, keeping them motivated.
Oh, like breadcrumbs.
Exactly. And when they finally reach the tree and eat the apple, they get a massive surge.
The reward.
It reinforces the behavior. The brain says that felt good and it kept you alive. Remember how to do this.
It's the ultimate task completion reward.
Yeah.
And it feels amazing. Like when you cross a difficult task off your to-do list, that rush of satisfaction is dopamine.
Exactly.
But the problem, I guess, is how easily our modern environment has hijacked this system.
Oh, entirely. We don't have to walk miles for an apple anymore.
No, we can just pick up our smartphones.
Right.
The research links dopamine directly to modern addictions. like alcohol, gambling, smoking, and crucially, social media.
It's terrifying how effective it is.
It really is. Every single time your phone buzzes with a notification, a text, or a like on a photo, your brain gets a hit of dopamine.
It is instant, powerful, and highly addictive. And because it's a selfish chemical, it doesn't require anyone else.
Right.
You can sit completely alone in a dark room and flood your brain with dopamine just by scrolling on a screen for hours.
That's such a bleak image, but it's so true. And in a corporate context, relying solely on dopamine-driven metrics creates a highly toxic environment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If your company's primary rewards are just hitting quarterly sales targets, securing isolated bonuses, or checking off arbitrary KPIs,
You're basically running a dopamine cartel,
that's a great way to put it. You are treating your employees like addicts.
conditioning them to chase the next hit of validation.
Yes, without any deeper connection to the organization or the people around them. And it inevitably leads to massive burnout.
Which is why we desperately need the second category of chemicals, the selfless or social chemicals.
Right, the ones that build the phalanx.
Exactly, the circle of safety. Let's look at serotonin first.
Serotonin is often called the leadership or pride chemical.
Pride chemical, I like that.
It's heavily tied to social dynamics and hierarchy. You feel serotonin when you perceive that others respect you, value your contributions, or admire your achievements.
I really love the example used in the research about walking across a graduation stage.
It's a perfect visual.
Right, because when you are handed that diploma and you hear your family cheering in the audience and your peers are applauding, you get this massive surge of serotonin.
And it physically changes you.
Yeah. Your posture straightens, your chest puffs out, your chin goes up, you feel like $1,000,000.
But what's really fascinating about serotonin is that it's a shared experience.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The parents sitting in the stands, watching their child graduate, they are also getting a flood of serotonin.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it worked both ways.
It does. It's a chemical that binds us through mutual pride. It makes us want to make others proud, and it makes us feel good when the people we mentor succeed.
It reinforces the social fabric of the tribe.
Exactly. But serotonin alone isn't quite enough to build deep, unbreakable trust. For that, we need the foundation of all human connection.
Oh, here we go. This is the big one.
Oxytocin.
Yes, oxytocin is the heavy hitter. It's the chemical of deep love, profound trust, and genuine friendship.
It's what holds societies together.
It really is. It's the chemical that floods a mother's brain when she gives birth, literally bonding her to your child.
Right.
But here's the catch, and I really want to contrast this with dopamine. Dopamine is like a cheap sugar rush, right? It's instant, it's easy, but it's fleeting.
Whereas oxytocin,
Oxytocin is like a slow-cooked meal. It requires significant time, energy, and patience to build.
that is such a crucial distinction. You cannot hack oxytocin.
No shortcuts.
None. A leader cannot send out like an all-staff email praising the team and expect a rush of oxytocin. You can't get it from a quick text message.
So how do you get it?
Oxytocin requires physical proximity. It requires eye contact, shared struggles, vulnerability, and sustained interaction over a long period of time.
It's that undeniable feeling you have with your absolute best friend, where you know with complete certainty that they would drop everything to help you if you were in trouble.
Exactly. And the biological benefits of oxytocin are just immense.
Like what?
It actually physically lowers your blood pressure, it reduces stress, and genuinely boosts your immune system.
Seriously, it makes you healthier.
Yes. People who work in oxytocin-rich environments, teams with high trust and a strong circle of safety, they actually take fewer sick days.
That is wild.
They are physically measurably healthier.
Okay, so we have this incredible cocktail of human connection available to us.
Yep.
But we have to introduce the villain of the story now.
Ah, yes, the antagonist.
The biological antagonist is cortisol. I'll set the scene the way the research lays it out because it's so vivid. Imagine a herd of deer grazing peacefully in a meadow.
Okay.
Suddenly, one deer hears a sharp twig snap in the woods.
Its head snaps up.
Instantly,
Yeah.
its ears swivel, and without a single vocalized sound, the entire herd turns and sprints away.
Right.
They didn't see a predator. They didn't even smell one. They reacted purely to the chemical alarm spreading through their bodies.
And that alarm is cortisol.
Right.
It is the primary stress hormone. When the brain perceives a threat, it dumps cortisol into the bloodstream, initiating the classic fight or flight response.
So it's an emergency system.
The total emergency override. It increases your heart rate, dilates your pupils, and crucially, it shuts down non-essential biological functions.
What do you mean by non-essential?
Well, if you are running from a tiger, You don't need to be digesting your lunch right then.
Oh, right.
And you don't need your immune system fighting off a mild cold. All your energy is diverted to your muscles so you can survive the next 5 minutes.
But wait, if it's designed to save our lives, why do we call it the villain?
Because it is designed to be acute and temporary.
Oh, I see.
You perceive the threat, the cortisol spikes, you run away, and assuming you survive, the threat passes and the cortisol flushes out of your system. Your body returns to a normal state of homeostasis.
But modern corporate culture has totally ruined that cycle.
It has created a nightmare scenario. A bad workplace keeps employees in a constant chronic state of low-grade cortisol.
Right. Think about the fear of impending layoffs or toxic office gossip.
Or a micromanager who sends passive-aggressive emails at 11:00 p.m. on a Saturday.
Oh, the worst.
Your brain interprets those things as literal threats, and it keeps a slow drip of cortisol running through your veins all day, every day.
And the human body simply isn't built to marinate in stress hormones for 40 hours a week.
No, it rots us from the inside out.
The research says chronic cortisol damages blood vessels, impairs cognitive function, disrupts sleep, and causes severe anxiety and heart disease.
But from a leadership perspective, the most terrifying thing about cortisol is its interaction with oxytocin.
Right. This blew my mind.
The relationship between the two is biologically mutually exclusive.
Meaning?
Cortisol actively blocks the release and absorption of oxytocin.
I really want to emphasize that for everyone listening. If you are flooded with fear, you are chemically incapable of feeling trust.
Exactly. If an employee is terrified of their boss or constantly worried about losing their livelihood, they cannot biologically form a trusting bond with that leader.
And they can't form one with their colleagues either.
Right. The constant presence of cortisol shatters the circle of safety at a molecular level.
It turns everyone back into lone buffaloes, just looking out only for themselves.
Which brings us to a really heavy, almost philosophical question about the dynamics of power in the workplace.
Right. What do we actually owe our leaders, and what do they owe us?
There's a quote from General George Flynn in the source material that sums this up. He says, "The cost of leadership is self-interest."
I want to push on that a bit. What does that actually mean in practice?
It goes back to the evolutionary structure of the tribe.
Okay.
Throughout human history, we have naturally organized into hierarchies. We have always had alphas, or leaders,
Sure.
and the tribe inherently grants the alpha certain perks. In an ancient context, the alpha got the first choice of meat from a kill, or the safest place to sleep.
And as human beings, we generally still accept this hierarchy today.
We do. Most people do not harbor deep resentment that the CEO of their company has a larger office, makes a significantly higher salary, or gets a reserved parking spot near the front door.
Right. It makes sense that the person with the most responsibility gets compensated for it. We accept the perks of leadership.
We accept it, but only because there is a deeply ingrained, unspoken biological contract attached to those perks.
A contract.
Yes. The contract dictates that we grant the leader the money, the status, and the comfort. But in exchange, when danger arrives, when the tribe is threatened, the leader must be the first one to step forward. The leader must run toward the danger and use their strength to protect the tribe. That is a cost General Flynn is talking about.
You surrender your right to prioritize your own self-interest when things get difficult.
Exactly.
But what we see so often in modern business is the exact opposite.
Sadly, yes.
Leaders happily take all the perks, the multi-million-dollar bonuses, the private jets, the stock options.
Oh, absolutely.
But the moment the economy takes a slight dip or the quarterly earnings miss expectations by a fraction of a percent, what do?
They sacrifice the tribe to save themselves.
They implement mass layoffs just to protect their own bonuses and appease the shareholders.
And when a leader does that, they aren't just making a bad business decision.
Yeah.
They are violating a primal biological contract. That's why the resentment toward that kind of leadership isn't just frustration.
It's a deep, visceral disgust.
Exactly. And the research pinpoints a very specific historical period where this violation really became normalized.
The 1980s.
Yes, it traces this shift back to the 80s.
The roaring 80s. Wall Street booming, Gordon Gekko, the rise of the IBM PC, and the first Apple Macintosh.
Right, but the research focuses heavily on the rise of the disposable economy during this decade.
This was the era where we were suddenly surrounded by disposable cameras, disposable contact lenses, plastic silverware, cheap electronics.
Things that were designed to be used once or twice and then thrown in the garbage purely because it was more convenient than repairing them.
But the danger of a disposable economy isn't just environmental, is it?
No, it's deeply psychological. When a society becomes conditioned to view physical objects as cheap, temporary, and easily discarded, that mindset slowly bleeds into how we view human capital.
I see where you're going with that, but I want to map out that psychological bridge carefully.
Sure.
Because it seems like a massive leap to go from throwing away a plastic Kodak camera to viewing a human employee as disposable garbage. How did that transition actually happen?
It happened through the mechanism of abstraction and physical distance.
Abstracts.
Yes. Prior to the late 20th century, layoffs were generally considered a mark of profound corporate shame.
Oh, really?
Yes. If a company had to lay off workers, it meant the leadership had failed. It was a last resort measure taken only to prevent total bankruptcy.
So what changed?
Well, as companies scaled massively in the 80s and 90s, the management structures changed. Executives were no longer walking the factory floor.
They were isolated.
They were sitting in corporate headquarters hundreds or thousands of miles away. The employees ceased to be people they knew and became rows of data on spreadsheet software, which was just becoming ubiquitous.
Wow, just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. When you manage by spreadsheet, layoffs transition from a human tragedy to a standard accounting tool. The left side of the ledger must balance with the right.
So if revenues are down,
you simply highlight 500 rows on the spreadsheet and hit delete to make the numbers look good for the next earnings call.
distance breeds apathy. When you don't have to look a person in the eye, it's incredibly easy to destroy their livelihood.
It is.
The source material uses the 2009 Peanut Corporation of America scandal as a chilling modern example of this.
Oh, that story is horrifying.
It really is. The president of the company, Stuart Parnell, received lab results indicating that shipments of their peanut butter were contaminated with salmonella.
He had hard proof.
Explicitly informed of the danger. But instead of halting production and issuing a recall, he wrote an email complaining that the recalls were costing them too much money.
Unbelievable.
He ordered the tainted food to be shipped anyway, just to protect the bottom line. And as a direct result, 9 people died, and over 700 people suffered severe, agonizing sickness.
But you have to realize Stuart Parnell wasn't like a cartoon villain twirling his mustache.
He wasn't.
No, he was a man suffering from the extreme empathy deficit caused by abstraction. He wasn't standing in a pediatric ward watching a child violently ill from salmonella poisoning.
He was sitting in an office looking at profit margins.
Exactly. The victims were just theoretical consumers to him.
The material actually takes this concept to its absolute darkest, most extreme historical endpoint to prove just how dangerous abstraction is to human morality.
Right. It examines the architecture of the Holocaust.
Now, this is incredibly heavy, obviously, but the psychological mechanism here is vital to understand.
It is.
Why did the Nazis construct elaborate gas chambers? From a purely logistical standpoint, they had soldiers with weapons.
But the architects of the Holocaust realized that forcing soldiers to physically shoot men, women, and children face to face was psychologically breaking the soldiers.
Which is deeply disturbing on so many levels.
It is. So the gas chambers were designed to create physical and visual distance. Dropping a canister of Zyklon B into a vent from the roof or pushing a button is a mechanical, abstracted action.
The executioner doesn't have to look the victim in the eye.
Right. They don't have to witness the immediate, visceral reality of the agony they are causing.
It's the ultimate horrific manifestation of distance. When you remove the visual and emotional proximity to suffering, human beings are capable of terrifying cruelty.
There's a quote from Joseph Stalin in the material that perfectly and terrifyingly sums up this danger of scale.
What's the quote?
"One death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic."
Wow. Yeah. When an organization grows so large that its people become mere statistics, empathy just evaporates.
And that is the true crisis of the modern corporate landscape.
So, okay, the obvious question is, how do we reverse this?
Right.
If scale and abstraction strip away our humanity, how do leaders actually rebuild it?
Well, the research provides a fantastic case study for this.
Yes, Bob Chapman. He's a CEO known for acquiring failing manufacturing plants.
Right.
And he buys this specific plant in South Carolina that is just bleeding money and suffering from abysmal morale.
Now, the standard private equity playbook says you walk into the boardroom, look at the bloated spreadsheets, and start firing the bottom 20% of the workforce.
But Chapman doesn't do that.
No, he ignores the spreadsheets completely and goes straight to the source of the culture.
He walks down to the factory floor and simply starts talking to the workers.
Face to face.
Yeah. He sits down with a guy named Ron Campbell, who has worked at that plant for 27 years. And Chapman asks him, what is it actually like to work here?
And what did Ron tell him?
Ron tells him that the factory feels like a prison. He says he feels like he has to leave his freedom and his brain in the parking lot every morning.
Wow.
And the details of this are just mind-boggling. The spare parts that the workers needed to fix the machines were kept in locked wire cages.
Think about the psychological message that sends to an employee.
It screams, "We think you are thieves."
Exactly.
If a worker needed a $5 part to fix a machine, they had to track down a supervisor, get written permission, have the supervisor walk over with a key, unlock the cage, and sign out the part.
The lack of trust is staggering.
And it gets worse. The factory floor operated on a loud bell system, like a 1950s middle school.
You're kidding.
No. The bells dictated exactly when they could take a break, when they could eat lunch, and when they had to be back at their stations.
Meanwhile, the accountants and executives in the front office could grab a coffee, use the restroom, or chat by the water cooler whenever they pleased.
Exactly. The factory workers were treated as untrustworthy, malfunctioning parts of the machinery.
So Chapman takes immediate symbolic action.
What does he do?
He orders the locks physically removed from the spare parts cages. He tells the workers, you are the experts. You know what you need to do your jobs. Take the parts you need when you need them.
I love that.
He rips out the bell system. He tells them, if you are hungry, go eat. If you need to use the restroom, go. If you are tired, take a break.
Treating them like adults.
He even installed free payphones so they could call their families without having to scrounge for coins. He simply started treating them like responsible adult human beings.
And the culture flipped almost overnight. By extending dignity and trust, Chapman triggered a massive release of oxytocin throughout the organization.
The workers started treating the factory like they owned it. Machine breakdowns plummeted, efficiency skyrocketed.
But the most beautiful detail from this story is how the workers started treating each other.
Oh, the paid leave story.
Yes. An employee at the plant had a wife suffering from severe complications of diabetes, and she was going to have to amputate her leg.
Breaking.
The employee needed significant time off to care for her, but as an hourly wage worker, he couldn't afford to take unpaid leave.
Right.
But without management prompting them, without any corporate initiative, the other factory workers banded together and voluntarily donated their own accrued paid vacation days to this man.
Wow.
They gave up their own time off so their colleague could care for his dying wife without going bankrupt.
That is the ultimate validation of the circle of safety right there.
It really is.
When leadership extends trust and protection, the employees reflect that protection onto each other.
But it's important to note that extending trust also means surrendering absolute control.
Right, which leaders hate doing.
And that leads us to the concept of empowerment over authority. The research highlights the story of Captain David Marquet, who took command of the USS Santa Fe, a nuclear-powered submarine.
Marquet came from a very traditional military background. The leader gives the order, the subordinates execute it. Command and control.
So he's running drills with his new crew, trying to assess their capabilities. He's standing on the bridge, and he issues a standard command to the helmsman. Ahead 2/3, move the ship at 2/3 speed.
Kind of stuff.
The officer repeats the order, the helmsman acknowledges it, but the ship doesn't accelerate. Nothing happens.
Okay.
Marquet turns to the officer next to him and asks, what's going on? The officer looks at him and says, sir, this specific class of submarine does not have a 2/3 speed setting.
Oh, wow.
Marquet is stunned. He asks the officer, did you know that setting didn't exist before you repeated the order?
And the officer says,
yes, sir.
oh my God.
So Marquet asks the million-dollar question. Then why did you issue the order to the helmsman?
And the officer replies, because you ordered it, sir.
Which is just
Those words should terrify any leader because you ordered it.
absolutely terrifying.
It is the clearest indicator of a toxic hierarchy. When the culture of an organization dictates that questioning the leader is more dangerous than executing an undeniably flawed command, the organization is doomed.
The crew was fully prepared to drive a nuclear submarine into operational failure simply to avoid correcting the boss.
Exactly. So Marquet realized in that moment that he had to completely dismantle his leadership style.
He had to pivot hard.
He recognized that as the captain, his job was to determine the destination and the overall mission. But the actual authority to execute tasks had to be pushed down the chain of command to the people who held the specific, localized information.
Right, the people turning the dials and reading the sonar, knew the ship's capabilities far better than he did.
So he stopped giving granular orders. He shifted the entire vocabulary of the ship.
Oh, so
Instead of asking for permission, the crew was trained to say, "Captain, I intend to submerge the ship," or "I intend to alter our depth."
ownership.
Yes, and Marquet would simply reply, "Very well." He forced them to take psychological ownership of their actions.
But I want to play devil's advocate here for a second, because listeners in highly regulated industries might be pushing back on this.
Fair enough.
Don't we need strict rules, protocols, and standard operating procedures to prevent absolute chaos? If everyone is just executing what they intend to do based on their own judgment, doesn't the system collapse?
It's a very valid point. If I am flying on a commercial airline, I want my pilot rigidly adhering to a safety checklist.
Right. I do not want them getting creative with how the landing gear operates.
Absolutely not. Systems require rules to function efficiently, but true leadership is understanding the boundary of those rules.
Okay.
The research provides a stunning counterexample involving air traffic control, which operates under perhaps the most rigid, unforgiving rule sets on the planet.
Oh, this story was intense.
One of the cardinal unbreakable rules of air traffic control is that two commercial aircraft must maintain a minimum separation of 5 miles at all times.
To prevent mid-air collisions.
Exactly. If planes breach that 5-mile radius, klaxons blare, and it is a severe violation, you lose your job.
But the material details this emergency scenario where a passenger plane radios the control tower reporting a catastrophic engine failure.
They are losing altitude and they need to land immediately.
But the problem is there is another commercial jet right in front of them, perfectly aligned for the only available runway.
Right. Now, if the air traffic controller followed the strict, inflexible rule book, he would have instructed the crippled plane to pull up, circle the airport, and wait for the runway to clear, ensuring the 5-mile separation was maintained.
But pulling the nose up on an aircraft experiencing engine failure is a recipe for an immediate stall.
The plane would likely have dropped right out of the sky.
So what did the controller do?
The controller in the tower recognized that the abstract rule was conflicting with the reality of human survival. He chose to ignore the rule book.
He broke the rule.
He guided the failing plane down on a direct trajectory while frantically coordinating the other aircraft out of the way.
And in doing so, they brought those planes perilously close. They were only a few thousand feet apart at one point, absolutely shattering the 5-mile rule.
The alarms in the tower were screaming.
But by breaking that rigid protocol, he saved 126 lives that day.
Exactly. We don't trust leaders simply because they enforce rules like mindless algorithms.
A machine can enforce a rule.
Right. We trust human leaders because they possess the empathy and the situational awareness to know when humanity must supersede the protocol.
Wow. Okay, I want to pivot to talk about scale, because this all makes sense when you're talking about a single factory floor or one submarine or a single control tower.
Sure.
But how do we maintain this humanity when an organization grows to 500 or 5,000 or 50,000 employees?
It becomes much harder.
The research outlines 5 rules for managing numbers, and I want to really dig into a few of them, starting with rule number 2, Dunbar's number.
Ah, yes. Robin Dunbar is an anthropologist who made a fascinating discovery about the physical limitations of the human brain.
Okay, what did he find?
He studied the size of the neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for conscious thought, language, and social processing across various primates. He discovered that, based on the physical volume of the human neocortex, an individual can only maintain roughly 150 meaningful, stable social relationships.
Only 150. Why is that the hard limit?
Because a social relationship isn't just knowing someone's name. It's understanding their personality, their history, and critically understanding how they relate to everyone else in the group.
Oh, like the web of connections.
Exactly. If person A is angry with person B, how does that affect person C? Tracking that web of social dynamics requires immense computational power.
That makes a lot of sense.
Once a group exceeds about 150 people, the human brain simply cannot track the social web anymore. The group fractures, people become strangers, and you have to introduce rigid laws, bureaucracies, and management hierarchies to maintain order.
So the practical application for a business leader is pretty profound.
It is.
If your company grows past 150 employees, you cannot treat it as one giant cohesive family anymore.
You physically can't.
You have to physically and structurally break the organization down into smaller divisions, pods, or regional teams.
You have to manufacture environments where people still feel like they belong to a tribe of fewer than 150 people, where they actually know everyone's story.
Because if you don't, they just become anonymous cogs in the machine.
Exactly. Which ties perfectly into the third rule: meet the people you help.
This one is so important for motivation.
It is. If you want to motivate your employees, showing them a bar chart of rising revenues is highly ineffective.
It doesn't trigger anything.
Right. The research cites studies on charitable giving to prove this. If you ask donors to contribute money to solve a statistical problem, like, say, improving literacy rates by 4%, they give modest amounts.
Because it's abstract.
Exactly. But if you physically bring the donors into a room and let them sit across from the specific individual children whose books and tuition their money will fund,
Donations skyrocket.
through the roof. When we have a visual, tangible connection to the human impact of our work, our motivation shifts from dopamine-driven compliance to oxytocin-driven purpose.
I love that. I also want to touch on the fifth rule, the 7 days and 7 years rule.
This is a brilliant metric for navigating your own career satisfaction.
Yeah, the premise is that it takes about 7 days for the initial dopamine rush, with the honeymoon phase of a new job, to wear off.
Right. After a week, you start seeing the real culture of the place.
But the 7-year mark is the ultimate boundary. If you have been at a company for 7 years and you are chronically stressed, unfulfilled, and feeling unsafe,
It is time to leave.
you have given the organization enough time. The biology of habituation means the culture is fully baked into your daily life, and it is not going to magically change to accommodate you.
And culture under pressure is incredibly revealing. Look at the case study of the 2008 terrorist attacks at the Taj Hotel in Mumbai.
Oh, this story it gave me chills.
It's a devastating, multi-day siege by armed militants. Dozens of people were tragically killed. But amidst the absolute chaos, the behavior of the hotel staff was nothing short of extraordinary.
Because these were not highly trained security contractors or ex-military personnel.
No, they were chefs, waiters, busboys, and front desk clerks.
When the shooting started, human instinct, the cortisol response, should have driven them to flee out the back exits to save their own lives.
But many of them didn't. They actively stayed inside the war zone.
They formed physical human shields to protect the guests.
Kitchen staff guided tourists through hidden service corridors in the dark. Employees who had successfully escaped the building actually turned around and went back inside to try and rescue more guests.
Which begs the question, why would a waiter, earning a very modest salary, risk taking a bullet for a wealthy foreign tourist he met 3 hours ago?
Because culture is the shadow of leadership. The Taj Hotel operates on a deeply embedded Indian cultural philosophy called Atithi Devo Bhava, which translates to "the guest is God."
And the leadership of the hotel hadn't just put that phrase on a motivational poster in the break room.
No, they had woven it into the very fabric of how they treated their employees. They recruited from small towns looking for inherent empathy. They treated their staff with immense respect and protection.
So when you build a culture of profound duty and mutual respect, that culture takes over in a crisis.
The staff didn't consult an employee handbook when the bullets started flying. They fell back on the cultural DNA of the organization. They protected the guests because they felt genuinely protected by the leadership.
It is a breathtaking testament to human potential. But it also throws our current corporate reality into very sharp, uncomfortable relief.
It really highlights the gap.
The material spends some time tracing how we got so disconnected, looking at generational shifts.
Right.
It talks about how the generations that survived World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II endured massive structural trauma.
And because they survived such severe scarcity, they inadvertently passed down a survivalist hoarding mentality to their children.
Protect your own. Get what's yours before someone else takes it.
Which logically birthed the hyper-individualistic me generation of the 1970s and 80s.
But the research argues that our current generation, the internet generation, is facing an entirely different, perhaps more insidious crisis.
Well, we are living in an era of chronic distraction. We are suffering from an acute deficit of presence.
The analogy the material uses here is just so visceral.
The airplane analogy.
Yes. Imagine you were sitting in seat 12B on a commercial flight. You're cruising at 30,000 feet. The plane is on autopilot.
Okay.
And you find out that the pilot in the cockpit, the person whose sole job is to protect your life, isn't monitoring the instruments.
What are they doing?
They're scrolling through Instagram, they're liking vacation photos and watching short-form videos. How would you react?
I would be terrified and rightfully furious because the pilot is prioritizing a cheap dopamine hit over the massive responsibility in front of them.
But the point is that this is exactly how we treat the most important people in our lives today.
We sit at the dinner table with our spouses, or we sit in a one-on-one meeting with a struggling employee, and instead of being fully present, we have our phones right on the table.
We are constantly glancing at screens, waiting for the next ping, the next notification.
We are addicted to the frictionless validation of the digital world, and as a result, we are completely starving for oxytocin.
We are replacing deep, messy, meaningful human connection with shallow dopamine hits.
And the consequence is a workforce that feels profoundly isolated. You can be sitting in an open-plan office surrounded by 50 people and feel completely alone because no one is actually looking out for you.
So how do we break the cycle? How do we cure this modern crisis of disconnection and actually build the traits of a true leader?
Well, the final section of the research looks at something very unexpected: the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program.
And this genuinely blew my mind.
AA has been studying the mechanics of human behavior, addiction, and behavioral change for nearly a century.
Right, and if you look at the first 11 steps of their program, they are intensely inward focused.
It's about admitting you are powerless over the addiction. It's about taking a fearless moral inventory of yourself.
Making amends to the people you have personally harmed.
Exactly. Seeking spiritual awakening. It is all about repairing the self.
But the data shows that you can rigorously complete steps 1 through 11, and you are still highly susceptible to relapsing.
The sobriety doesn't fully anchor until you execute the 12th step.
And step 12 has absolutely nothing to do with self-reflection.
And that is the masterstroke of the program because it perfectly aligns with our biology.
What is the 12th step?
The 12th step is simply committing to help another struggling addict. When an addict who is fighting for their own sobriety sits down in a church basement, looks a terrified, shaking newcomer in the eye, and says, "I know exactly the hell you are going through, and I am going to help you survive it," it completely rewires their neurochemistry.
It forces them out of their own head.
Exactly. It shifts their focus entirely away from their own survival, their own cravings, and their own ego.
And by directing their energy toward the service and protection of another human being, they trigger a massive, sustained release of oxytocin.
That oxytocin creates a bond of trust that is literally stronger than the biological pull of the dopamine craving the addiction relies on. It cures the isolation.
Man, it all comes full circle. To be a true leader, your ultimate purpose has to shift from your own success to the genuine care of another person.
It can't be about securing your own promotion, getting the corner office, or maximizing your annual bonus.
It must be about taking responsibility for the lives entrusted to you. That is the only way to forge a real circle of safety.
If we synthesize everything we've explored today, from the evolutionary imperative of the buffalo herd to the interlocking shields of the Spartans,
From the dangers of spreadsheet abstraction to the heroism at the Taj Hotel.
what is the ultimate takeaway for the listener?
Right, what's the bottom line here?
The research suggests the ultimate test of leadership is surprisingly simple. Do you treat your team the way a healthy, loving parent treats their children?
It's the perfect litmus test.
It is.
Because if your household budget gets tight because the economy dips, you don't look at your youngest child and say, "Sorry, Timmy, Q3 revenues were a little soft. We're going to have to let you go to balance the ledger."
You would never do that. You would weather the storm together. The parents might skip a meal or take on extra work, but they protect the family unit.
When employees feel that level of parental protection, when they know without a shadow of a doubt that the leadership will take the hit before they sacrifice the team,
They will reward that organization with their absolute best.
they will innovate without fear of failure, they will collaborate instead of competing, and they will run through brick walls to ensure the organization succeeds.
It is an incredibly high standard, but it is the only one that biologically works.
And it leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought to close out this deep dive.
Okay.
We have spent the last hour talking extensively about how a leader's actions trickle down to shape the culture of an organization.
We have.
But consider the reverse mechanism. How does the culture you accept as an employee quietly, slowly shape the leader you are destined to become?
That is a scary question.
If you choose to remain in a toxic environment, an organization that treats you as a disposable statistic, an environment fueled by cortisol, fear, and spreadsheet management, Are you slowly unlearning your own humanity?
If you marinate in that culture for 7 years, will you inevitably become the very boss you currently despise when you finally get the promotion?
Exactly. So take a hard look at the circle you are standing in today, right now, and ask yourself a very serious question.
Are you holding a shield for the person next to you?
Or are you just waiting for the right moment to use your sword?